Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today is coming to you from the wonderful country of Israel. Dr. Gabriel Cousens, medical doctor, is the author of many books, including Spiritual Nutrition, Six Foundations for Spiritual Life, and the Awakening of the Kundalini. You can find out more about Dr. Gabriel Cousens and his wonderful work at his website, drcousinsspiritualfast.com. And he's got a couple of other websites that I'm going to ask him to share. Welcome, Dr. Gabriel Cousens.
Thank you, Catherine. It's nice to be speaking to you.
So, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, for our audience, will you please share other websites, additional websites where people can find out about you and your wonderful work?
Sure. Easy one is drcousens.com.
Okay.
That's real easy. And the second one is treeoflife.mn.co. treeoflife.mn.co.
Now, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, I know that coming up in June of 2025, you're going to be hosting a fasting retreat. First of all, what is fasting?
Okay. It's a kind of a slowing. Okay?
It is a what?
A slowing.
Okay, slowing. Okay.
And that there are different kinds and different levels of fasting. I think that's important to understand. There's a water fast. And I don't do a lot of water fasting for people. Myself, I've done a 21-day water fast, but it's a little stress on some people. So we do a diluted green juice fast. It's kind of a mix, closer to the water fast, but all the different tastes make things better for people. So it's a slowing because the whole idea of fasting is to slow your life down to rebalance. So the concept of fasting, the way we teach it, is really spiritual fasting. That's why it says Dr. Cousens spiritual fasting, because we're meditating twice a day. We're doing the Kali Ray Tri Yoga once a day. We're doing breathing exercises, what we call in yoga pranayama. So all these things are going on, and we encourage people to do walking or swimming or different things. Where we are, which is in the Dominican Republic, where we're going to be doing the fast, we've rented a house and there's a big swimming pool there, a nice green lawn to walk barefoot on the grass, that kind of thing. So think slowing and then think the different ways, and ours is a very, very safe way. It's a 7-day fast, which is really safe for most people. Okay. When you get into 21-day fast or longer, you can get in imbalances. So that's an important concept. And really, you're fasting from everyday life. That's why it's on retreat. People, when you fast at home, not that you can't do it, but there's a lot of distractions. So the whole idea is, okay, let me just slow down and go to a space to take care of things. So now our fast, and I've been guiding fast since 1982. You can do the math of that, okay? So it's like 45 years, okay? Roughly speaking. And so we've done a variety of different fasts, and this is the combination that I do. We used to do things with fruit juice and things, but people got too imbalanced with the sugar. That's why we're doing the green juice fast, with a few different tastes, a few tomatoes here and there, but that's the concept. Okay, so that's a physical detox, is the green juice, is the juicing fast of it. We do enemas, which is essential for a successful fast, for the last 5,000 years, at least once a day. So we teach people how to do that. That's one thing we do. We do recommend skin brushing because you're also off-gassing. So you want to get all the thing, and that's about a third of the toxins that the body's putting out comes out of the skin. Obviously, the kidneys are your main player. So we also have a certain volume. We like people to have at least 8 16-ounce glasses a day of water or juice. And the purpose, again, is to flush the kidneys. It also crosses over into liver cleansing as well, and also lymph. So we recommend people getting massages, which are available, lymphatic massage. And the Kali Ray Tri Yoga moves you around in a way that works your lymph and your muscles.
Now, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, you mentioned that there are different kinds of fasts. For our audience, can you explain the different kinds of fasts? Because in your fasting retreat, you offer green juices, but can you give our audience a bigger picture of different kinds of fast?
So the classical fast before they had juicers was a water fast. So Socrates and Plato, they did the water fasts. The Essenes did water fasts. Pythagoras did water fasts because that's what they had. Okay, and they took enemas with reeds. They used the reed to put that in. So fasting is, number one, not a new idea, but basically initially it was water. Okay. And of course, if you're going to do water, it has to be very clean. All the water we use will be filtered water and so forth. Okay. The next level up is this kind of diluted juice that gives you enough. It makes it a lot easier for people to fast. Okay. So they said, I've done a 21-day water fast. It was fine. I did 100 push-ups on the 21st day. It was fine. Okay, so now the next one is a full juice, not diluted juice. Okay, and then you can do a fruit juice fast. Some people do that as well. Now there are downsides to those because too much sugar. Even though it's fructose, it's still sugar, and it kind of affects you in some ways. So we choose to do kind of the second most strong fast, which is diluted green juice.
Now, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, somebody listening to this may go, why should I fast? What are the benefits of fasting?
It's a very good question. So why have been people doing it for 5,000 years? Why does Pythagoras do it? Why does Socrates do it? Why did they do it? Okay, so why did the different saints and different traditions and the prophets do fasting? They all did it. Elijah did a 40-day fast too. Okay, so what do they know that we don't know? Well, when you fast, first level is you're clearing the body. Second detox level is you're clearing the mind. So we have a lot of toxins in the mind, physical toxins, but mental toxins and emotional toxins. So we do, in our groups, we help people release that. Also, I'm trained as a psychiatrist and an orthomolecular psychiatrist. So what happens during the juice fast is the rebalancing of the neurotransmitters, which is very good and calming for people. But also there's time for emotional, one-on-one kind of emotional release if people need something like that. So when you fast, the first day or two is more deep physical detox. Day 2, 3, 4, is more emotional detox. So we have the physical detox and the emotional detox. Day 5, 6, and 7 is people start to feel really good because their mind, the toxins are out of the brain cells, the mind's working better. Overall inflammation goes down. Now with age, there is an increased inflammation in the brain. One of the really good advantages of fasting is it decreases inflammation. Brain inflammation in general, but also brain inflammation. So, and it reactivates, this is kind of a subtle here, the microglia cells of the brain. These are the cells that clear out the brain of toxins. With age, a little bit, the average they say is around 60, the microglia cells begin to get loaded with toxins and begin to actually inflame the brain. So you're literally pulling the toxins out of the microglia cells as well as the neurons. Now what's also happening in this regeneration, because that's part of it, it's not just detox. Okay, that's important. So we've done physical, emotional, and mental detox. And the spiritual detox also happens. But what it means, and then I'll go back to that point I want to make, is from a yogic point of view, and I'm going to say biblical too, I've been trained, not as a rabbi, but also as a person in the yogic tradition who can give Shaktipat, which is the energy that can awaken the kundalini, which is the spiritualizing force in the body. In Hebrew, it's the Ruach HaKodesh. Same thing. Okay? And so we're meditating twice a day, and I'm giving Shaktipat, it's by touch, twice a day. So it starts to activate people. Now, other side of that is as you detox, there is different levels of systems. So in the yogic tradition, they call it nadis. Acupuncture, they may call it meridians. They're not quite the same, but they're flows of energy. So in the yogic system, we talk about 72,000 nadis. And we're also talking about 3 main nadis, the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. The Sushumna is the central nadi. Now, why is that important? It's because this is where the energy flows through the nadis. So here's a picture of how that looks. And these are, where it crosses are the chakras. Okay, so these nadis flow, and that yellow line is the Sushumna. Now, why? Now that's important.
And I'm going to interrupt you, Dr. Gabriel. So for our listening audience, Dr. Gabriel Cousens shared a cover with one of his books with an illustration of the Sushumna, which is the central vertical main energy channel, and the Ida and Pingala, which are the male and female, the yin and yang channels that intertwine the Sushumna. So
and when they cross over, that's where the chakra energies are.
Yeah.
Now, why is that important? When you are toxic, and also when you're eating meat, fish, chicken, and dairy, it literally clogs the nadis. It literally blocks the flow of, in the Eastern system, the kundalini energy, and in the Western thing, biblical, is the Ruach HaKodesh. So you have, when you're fasting, these channels open up within 3 or 4 days. And so there's much more flow of this energy. Basically, in my experience, by the time the fast is over, and of course I don't want to make it a guarantee, about 80% of the people have the awakening of kundalini, which is the next level of spiritual growth. Because when the kundalini is activated, you have a release of the spiritualizing energy in the system that really goes through the whole system. But the main three nadis of the 72,000 is where it's moving.
And
Now,
Dr. Cousens, for
yeah,
our audience, will you explain, first of all, what is Kundalini? Because some of our listening audience may not actually know what Kundalini is. And
right.
then also what happens when our Kundalini energy is activated?
Perfect. So it's a good question. So the first thing is to understand is that kundalini is a spiritualizing force that's stored in potential in the body at the base of the spine. Okay, it's not in the spine, but at the base, in that area. Now, there are two levels of kundalini. You have the cosmic kundalini coming down, and you have the stored kundalini that needs to be released. When it's released, we enter the next level of spiritual life. Because this released kundalini that's stored at the base of the spine begins to be activated and go throughout the whole system, energizing, spiritualizing, two things there, all aspects. So we've seen remarkable physical healings. That's not the point of it, but it happens, okay? And I've seen, again, mostly the expansion of consciousness. So I lived in India on and off for 7 years with Swami Muktananda near Mumbai. And partly because of my background and partly because he tunes into he's not alive anymore, to your destiny. He assigned everybody to me who had any issues with kundalini and needed to learn. So over time, I became really an expert at it. A serious expert. Now, who knows about kundalini? And so I've kind of helped write a book by Dr. Lee Snell, who left his body in his 90s, but Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence. So I'm particularly trained in creating a safe unfolding of Kundalini.
And with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. My name is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We're listening to Dr. Gabriel Cousens explain the many benefits of fasting. We'll be right back. Dr. Gabriel Cousens, as you are well aware, as you know, the prolonged deprivation of food is also known as starvation. And some people, for example, political prisoners, stop eating as a form of protest. How long is it actually safe to fast? And how do we stay safe during a fast?
Okay, so I'll kind of lead into that because it's a little different. We need to understand the Kundalini is the spiritualizing force, or Ruach Kadesh. And when that's activated, your whole spiritual life expands. Your spiritual capacity expands. And your consciousness expands. That's like really, really the biggest benefit of a spiritual fast. It isn't detox, it's expansion of consciousness. So that's to me, the most exciting part of it. So just to kind of answer that, to complete that concept. Now, I've also done a 40-day fast as well. Um, Generally, a 7-day fast is extremely safe. No, really don't see problems with that. When you get to a 21-day fast, that's your limit of the safety zone. Beyond that, you're taking some risk, and you should really, honestly, should be supervised the whole time because you never quite know what's going to happen. So the answer is, really 1 to 3 weeks is kind of a safe zone, so to speak. And of course, it depends how much you weigh. I usually lose 4 pounds in a fast, and 3-4 days later I'll gain it back because I'm not thin, but I'm at optimal weight. I'm the same weight as I was in high school. So it's an optimal weight. So you're always going to go to your optimum weight. Okay, now obviously if you're way overweight, which is some people get from, choose to fast, it's more of a medical fast. And I supervise people with that. Okay, so you'll lose weight and you'll keep it off because the whole body wants to go to the optimum weight. Now, during a fast, other things happen. I'm also have a book called There Is a Cure for Diabetes. Okay. And generally within 3 weeks, we heal 61% of the non-insulin dependent. Now, that's interesting. Let me tell you how interesting it is. Most doctors believe you can't cure diabetes. And we're getting 61% in 3 weeks. After a year, obviously, it's a much higher percentage. And I also have found that even on insulin, pretty much anyone on insulin is going to come off within 3 days of the fast. So I actually usually have a separate group for that, that we meet each day and I supervise people because we want to come off that. And to do that, it builds up the pancreas and the insulin production and so forth. So that's another kind of piece to it in a big way. I think my classic was a lady who was 93 years old. She came on 13 medications. Arthritis, heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes are some of them. And when we were done, off all her medications and all her symptoms were gone, I saw her a year later and she's still doing great. So I'm making another statement as fasting works at any age. That's kind of an important little statement there. Even when you're 93 years old on 13 medications, in a few weeks, the body regenerates. So one of the concepts here is it does regenerate you. That's really important. It does. It also stimulates growth of brain cells and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a hormone that stimulates the growth of neurons, brain cells. All this literally gets stimulated by fasting, and it increases your brain size. So it's a win-win-win-win-win type situation. So that's kind of what we observe, but that's not my research. I mean, that's my observation, but that research is in the literature, what I'm talking about. So it's not theory. Okay, so people are getting the spiritual awakening. The nadis are cleared because you're getting meat, fish, chicken, all that toxin out. And we do try to help people make a transition in the level of their diet away from these things that block the flow of the spiritual energy. Remember, the spiritual energy is now awakened. Well, you have to do things to keep it going. And I'm going to just say a vegan diet, which in England was one of the first places, 1944, they started reporting about veganism before everybody else. So we want to transition in that direction because then you don't have so much blockage of the nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, but the 72,000 in general. So all that kind of unfolds physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And like I said, you release emotional toxins, but also for type 2 diabetes, it's very curative. About 20% of type 1, which is absolutely impossible, about 20% will heal in 3 weeks. No, heal in 3 weeks means no insulin. Type 1s are always supposed to have insulin. No insulin, and a blood sugar less than 100.
Amazing. And this is 3 weeks of continuous fasting.
Actually, just a week.
Amazing. Now,
sometimes some people will extend for 2 weeks, but really just a week.
Now, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, for our audience, I want to ask some specific questions to help you educate our audience. So you mentioned enemas. What is an enema?
Okay.
And what is an enema, and why are enemas helpful in successful fasting?
Okay, it's a good question. So we have everyone built up toxins in their system. Particularly in our toxic world, it's just what happens when you're living, okay? So the toxins get released in a variety of places. They come out on the skin. I mentioned a third of the toxins, and you want to do skin brushing to get the toxins off like that, with a brush, obviously. And the high volume of liquid helps you release the toxins from kidneys and liver and the blood and the lymph. The colon also builds up toxins. And the principle is the concept of osmosis. Things go from higher concentrations to lower concentrations. So when you put water in the colon, okay, you're creating a lower concentration than in the rest of the intestines, both in the intestinal wall but also in the intestines. And so it's going to pull the toxins out because it's a lower level of concentration. Now, obviously, when you're flushing 2 quarts of water in, you're rinsing the colon.
Now, and for our audience, will you also explain what is skin brushing? How do we do it, and what are the benefits of skin brushing?
Okay. So skin brush, there are various ones, but they're about this big, often have a stick on it.
And so he's making a size of maybe a large orange, we'll say.
Or a big soap.
A big soap, thank you. Yeah.
And you brush in circular ways for about a minute. Your whole body. Mm-hmm. Legs, feet, arms, chest.
And this is before you get into the shower or the bath.
Correct. And then when you take the bath or the shower, it's going to pull the toxins that will just go off into that. Mm-hmm. And it also stimulates the lymphatics. And my belief is probably the meridians too, but for sure the lymphatics and the whole detox system in the skin.
Right. And for our audience, the lymphatic system is twice as large as the circulatory system for the blood. So there's lymph glands all over the body. So when you're stimulating the lymphatic system, and you have a lymph system in the brain, Dr. Cousens talked about your glial cells, and you have a lymph system in your gut, the gut-assisted lymphoid tissue. And there's lymph glands everywhere. So when we're doing the dry skin brushing, you're stimulating the flow of lymph in the body. Right.
And when you're doing the Kali Retra yoga and breathing exercises, you're stimulating the lymph in the chest area and so forth. Okay? So that's part of the story. So with the enemas, you're flushing first out, obviously, all the feces out of the colon. But that's usually clears in a few days. But you're really pulling the toxins out of the lymph and the circulation that's affecting the whole digestive system from the stomach and obviously small and large intestine. So you're pulling that out because it's more concentrated than the water. So that's the concept of the enema.
And with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We're listening to Dr. Gabriel Cousens, medical doctor, orthomolecular psychiatrist, talk about the many benefits of fasting. We'll be right back. Dr. Gabriel Cousens, you are an orthomolecular psychiatrist. I understand what that is. Can you share for our audience what exactly is an orthomolecular psychiatrist, and what can an orthomolecular psychiatrist do that the regular psychiatrists do not do?
So one of the things that we can do is we honestly don't need to use psychotropic medications, which are very bad for you. And very honestly detrimental in a variety of ways, but I don't want to go in that direction. The real direction is the orthomolecular psychiatry is about rebalancing your neurotransmitters so you have optimal brain function. It's that complex, but it's that simple. The concept is simple. Sometimes you really aren't even producing the neurotransmitters that you need to get things to work. So we use supplements in different ways to stimulate the production of your neurotropic factors and things that stimulate the really brain health. And balance all the neurotransmitters. And there's more than just a few. Serotonin and dopamine. And there's actually a much bigger list. The point I'm making is with the fasting and with the supplements afterwards, not during, you can seriously rebalance the system so you get optimal brain function. And I've written a book about that too, of how to go about doing that. The main point, the book is called Depression Free for Life. Mm-hmm. Now, as we know, depression is like a leading cause of misery in the world, right? So it's an audacious title, Depression Free for Life, but it's true. Okay, so when we replace and stimulate the production of neurotransmitters, okay, and then give a person an optimal supplement and diet, you really can optimize a person for life. Now, I began doing this when I was a resident in 1970, okay? That's 55 years ago, okay? And I was actually getting people out of the mental hospital, physically out, and rebuilding their brains. I did it under supervision because people were a little freaked out about it, under Dr. Jonathan Cole, who was head of National Institute of Mental Health, high-level people and Dr. Al Damasio was head of psychopharmacology in Massachusetts. So they were watching me. I mean, they were supervising me. Or I was supervising them, but they were watching, okay? Because this is a new concept. So it's eating and living and using supplements in a way that stimulates optimal brain function and brings you back to optimal brain function. That's key.
Yeah, for our audience, I first found out about orthomolecular psychiatry when I was writing two of my books, the most recent being Banish the Blues Now. My
There
very
you go.
was
Yeah.
called Healing Depression, a holistic guide. It was endorsed by Dr. Abram Hoffer, also an
He
orthomolecular.
was almost the first one.
Yes, he was a leading light, but it's really about, in a nutshell, using natural healing to heal the brain. And so let's bring it back to fasting. So there's all these benefits to fasting. I remember when I was younger, I didn't tell anybody, but I did a water fast for 20 days. I just decided to do it. And who knows why?
Good for you.
I just did it. And how often do you recommend that people fast? Because you said that we can safely fast for about 7 days, whether we do a juice fast or a water fast. How often do you recommend that people fast?
So what I do, um, as I've looked at this question of the last 45 years, um, is I suggest people do a 7-day fast twice a year.
Okay.
Because we're always building up toxins. And when you're doing that, it pretty much takes care of it. So when I fast, we have a fast coming up in Dominican Republic, June 1st, and I don't feel much because my body has been clearing it and clearing it and clearing it. And I've done a little bit of research about toxins in the body, and you do a 1 week fast, and the average person has about 26 toxins in their body. Okay.
Wow.
It's really more than that, but what I tested was 26. It can be up as much as 200, but I was looking for something. So after a week, you've cut that down by 2/3.
Yes, and so for our audience, let's give an example of toxins, microplastics, which can go everywhere, including your brain, chemicals from the environment, also
Alcohol,
alcohol, drugs, legal and illegal, also heavy metals, right?
yes.
Right?
I was testing all those, lead, mercury, cadmium, all of those, because there's a big category. As I say, it's about 200. So we had, because I can only test so much, a drop from about 26 down to really 13 and 10. And then the second week of fasting went to 0.
Wow. Now, as you can imagine, many of our audience here at the Natural Healing Show take all kinds of supplements, herbs, remedies of all kinds. Do you recommend that people completely come off all supplements and medications while they're fasting? What's your recommendation?
I recommend people stop all their supplements while they're fasting so the body can reorganize.
Mm-hmm.
You have to withdraw from alcohol. You have to withdraw from, Valium. And some of that is you don't do in a day.
Yes.
Usually by the end of a week, those are gone. So if somebody's really on Valium, I like them to fast 2 weeks because of it's very addictive.
Yes.
I find that narcotics and marijuana, which is also addictive, it shrinks your brain, among other things, it's going to take me 4 to 6 days to get most of that out of the system. So I recommend 2 things. I recommend, okay, a week, most people can just take off time to do a week, but I recommend they do a second fast or a third fast, to do it over time. I try to do the fast every 6 months for people.
Now let's bring it back to the spiritual element. What does the spiritual literature tell us about the benefits of fasting?
The spiritual literature is very ancient. So fasting for spirituality, we clearly see the prophets would do their 40-day fast. We clearly see the Greek people like Pythagoras and Socrates and so forth would do their 40-day fast. In China, it's a little different. They weren't as hot about fasting. Naturopathic is, again, very helpful. So the kind of natural healing systems will support fasting. I'm going to say they have experience in fasting. It's one of the natural ways to go about things. For me, it's a basic for everyone. Don't get away from the idea of healing. How do you get high maintenance, high quality life? So if you're fasting 1 week, twice a year, you're going to maintain a very high quality toxin-free life. Toxins build up after 6 months. Okay, fine. Okay, it takes about 4 months. Fine. If you're fasting every 6 months, now we've gone more international. So we're doing Dominican Republic, and I'm also looking at Dubai, which is closer to England. They're very set up, and as like doing 2 fasts a year for people, kind of in a different ways of getting to where we're going. So we're kind of focused on more setting up more internationally for people. Again, it's very 5,000 years old. People talk about fasting. So it's not like anything new that I've created, not at all.
Now, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, as human beings, we all have all kinds of fears. And one of a common human fear is actually fear of hunger. How can people overcome their fear of hunger in order to fast? And how long does it take to fast before you actually sort of stop being hungry?
You're really asking good questions. So if people have real fears of hunger, I do a kind of usually a half-hour, an hour session to deal with their fear, because that has to do with fear of death and a few other things. But generally speaking, you lose your fear within about 3 days. 1 to 3 days. Because you fast, suddenly you start to feel good, okay? And your mind gets clear. So there isn't a lot of space for fear. And then you know it's safe, because everybody's having a good time. In our fast, we do a lot of sharing. We don't let people isolate. So we have groups every day, besides my diabetes kind of group, or detox group. It's a little different. When you're coming off opium or something like that, you need a little bit more support, of course, or Valium. But generally, supportive groups, it kind of goes away within a few days. Now, if it's there at all.
Now, as you know, many people have severe digestive issues like Crohn's and colitis. How can fasting help people with Crohn's and colitis?
It's a good question. First of all, it helps very consistently. Now, why? Well, because what gets your intestinal tract inflamed? Yes, emotions, but yes, food. If you're not having food and you're just having liquid, it gives your colon, small and large intestine, a chance to heal. I will usually use fasting for those diseases because they're talking about really an inflamed gastrointestinal tract. And when you fast, the inflammation goes down and you're not irritating it with food. And some of these people, they feel so good to not have these symptoms that they want to keep fasting. That's not too practical, but over time, when you're not irritating it, then what I do is I slowly add one food at a time and see how they do with it. Because a lot of it has to do with allergies, food allergies. Yeah. So here's the food, let's try it. Oh, I feel good, no problem. next food. And the third, oh, no, that didn't work. I feel terrible. So that's how I do it. So we add things back slowly, and so it's diagnostic too to see what is aggravating your system. But it works really well. Really, it gives people a lot of relief.
You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We've been listening to Dr. Gabriel Cousens, medical doctor, orthomolecular psychiatrist, author of many books, an expert about fasting for spiritual and health benefits. You can find out more about me at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. And you can learn more about Dr. Cousens at Dr. Cousens with an E, not Cousens with an I, but Cousens with an E.com. And remember, one of the simplest forms of natural healing is fasting. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.